Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 9th November 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions which will be highly useful for your upcoming mains examination. So in our first topic, we'll examine the emerging unholy nexus between the drug trafficking and terrorism, which is posing a significant challenge for India. After that, in our second topic, we'll discuss the challenges of prolonged pre-trial detention in India and the need for systemic reforms to ensure timely legal resolution. After that, in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we'll try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start with the first topic, that is Narco-Terror, the new weapon of war. On 22nd April 2025, the tragic Pahalgam attack happened, which led to death of 26 innocent civilians. India responded with Operation Sindoor, where India targeted several terrorist sites in Pakistan like Murid-ke, Bahawalpur, etc. And Pakistan responded with several drone and missile attacks, which were intercepted successfully by India. And India's response to that was much more stronger, where we targeted several key air bases in Pakistan like Noor Khan or other strategic locations like Kirana Hills. All these events show that the dynamics of internal security is constantly evolving. Every day there are new challenges that are coming in front of security forces or law enforcement agencies. One such challenge which has seen an uptrend in the recent times is narco-terrorism. And one such kingpin of a narco-terror module was recently arrested by the State Investigative Agency of Jammu and Kashmir. And this particular topic is related to your GS paper 3, linkages of organized crime with terrorism. And in UPSC CSC mains 2024, there was a question on narco-terrorism itself. Now, what exactly is the narco-terrorism? That refers to the nexus between the drug trafficking and terrorism, and where the terror group uses the narcotics funds or the networks to fuel the terrorist operations. For example, whatever the networks these drug cartels have or these drug traffickers have, that is used to supply arms and ammunition to the terrorist organizations or terrorists. Or whatever the money that they are getting by the sale of the drugs, that is also used to fund the terrorist operations. And mainly it fuels the separatism, for example Khalistan movement, or insurgency and organized crime. The main aim of this narco-terrorism is to weaken the society and also to undermine the national security. And this word narco-terrorism became very popular in 1980s and especially in Latin American regions, where the drug cartels were using violence against law enforcement. The major hotspots of narco-terrorism in India is in the region of Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab because of the cross-border networks that these regions have with Pakistan. And why it has become a major challenge? Because now we have seen an uptrend with regard to the drug use and drug abuse. For example, as per UNODC and World Drug Report of 2022, India was one of such country where the 4th largest opium seizure happened in 2020, which was 5.2 ton. And interestingly, in past few years, we have seen several big consignments which were confiscated by the law enforcement agencies, whether it was at Mundra port or in Punjab, Maharashtra regions. Then the 3rd highest morphine seizure happened in 2020, that was 0.7 ton. And all of this accounted for around 7% of global opium and 2% of global heroin seizures in 2019. That means a significant amount of this confiscation is happening in India itself. And that is also visible from the fact with the data that was from the Indian Express investigation that shows that whatever the patients that were coming at DDC Srinagar saw a jump of over 75% in the OPD from the previous year of 2021-22 to 2022-23, where the follow-up cases in the earlier year was 21,280 and it increased to 38,074 in 2022 March to 2023 March. And 90% of these drug users are in age group of 17 to 30 itself, and this is the same age bracket which mainly gets attracted towards the terrorist groups or terrorist operations or militancy related activities. And one addict walks into Srinagar OPD every 12 minutes. That shows the abysmal or the poor condition of drug abuse that we are witnessing in the valley. And this menace is a bigger threat than the militancy. Why? Because the dependency that it is creating, that these youth population, these young population, when they are already dependent on the drugs and when they will not have the money, these terrorist organizations will be taking that as an advantage, and these people will be attracted towards the militant related activities to fulfill their needs of drugs, to fulfill their needs of finances. What are the causative factors of rise in the narco-terrorism in the India? It is one of the most important factor is the geographical factors. That India is sandwiched between the Death Crescent, which is the new name of Golden Crescent, and Death Triangle, which is the new name of the Golden Triangle, which was the earlier name. So Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan are the regions of Death Crescent, where around 80% of opium production is happening as of now. And this Myanmar, Laos and Thailand is the region of the Death Triangle, which is also one of the major producer of various drugs. And India, being a populous country with a young population, serves as one of the potential markets where they can send these products. And that is one of the important factor why we are witnessing such a high drug abuse in the recent times. And when the drug abuse is increasing, these money, these funds, these networks are also being utilized for the terrorism-related activities. Second important factor is the socio-economic factors. For example, poverty, which is still very high. As per Multidimensional Poverty Index of 2024, the headcount ratio is 11.28%. But if you look into the unemployment rate, as per Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, the unemployment rate is around 6 to 7%. But if you look into the data from PLFS 2023-24, in Jammu and Kashmir, the youth unemployment is much higher. It is more than 10%. It is around 15-16% for some of the periods in the year. So when youth is highly unemployed, they do not have proper money with the help of which they can fulfill their desires, with the help of which they can fulfill their needs. Obviously, they becomes one of the important potential targets for these terrorist groups. Also, the corruption and the limited resources in the enforcement agencies. For example, there were various cases where several important officers in the Jammu and Kashmir police, they were arrested on account of their unholy nexus with the drug cartels, on account of the various networks that they established for drug trafficking. Also, the inadequate forensic and technological infrastructure. For example, in recent times, what we are witnessing, that increased use of dark net and dark web for the trade of these drugs. And law enforcement agencies are not equipped to deal with such kind of technological advancements. For example, there were various reports that before Pahalgam attacks, the people who were involved in that particular terrorist activity, they were talking on various gaming apps. And it becomes very difficult for the law enforcement agencies to keep a watch on all the apps which are being utilized. Every day there are new apps that are coming. Plus, with the new end-to-end encryptions, etc., that are being provided by the various applications, again it becomes very difficult to tackle such kind of communications which are happening between the various terrorist groups or the drug cartels. For example, this is the data from NCB. You can see that up to April 2025, there were 11 cases where the darknet and the crypto cases related to the drugs use. Courier and parcel cases were 35 up to April 2025. All these are the cases that shows that there is an increased use of the online e-commerce websites, online darknet and the crypto cases. So until and unless our law enforcement agencies will be equipped with the better technologies to deal with such kind of high-end technologies, it will be very difficult to deal with that. And the high domestic demands for drugs also sustains trafficking. with the lifestyle changes that are happening, with the economic instability which is increasing, high unemployment, job losses that are happening, or the layoffs that we have witnessed in the recent times. When there is too much stress, obviously people are attracted towards drugs. Or you might have seen this, or you might have heard this, when the young population goes to college or they joins universities, in that case also, just to get a new feeling or just to experiment, they start taking drugs or they start experimenting with the drugs. And the major consumer of these drugs is the youth population itself. So when the demographic dividend of the youth population is increasing in India, and which wants to experiment with the drugs, and the stress is increasing, new kind of problems are coming in front of youth, and now there is more demand of the drugs, so that sustains the drug trafficking, and that also ensures that there is proper funds that are available for the terrorist related activities, because whatever the money that is coming from the drugs, that is being utilized for the terrorist activities. Also, the complex cross-border network and the state-sponsored actors. For example, the ISI of Pakistan is supporting various terrorist organizations as well as various drug cartels. Or the cross-border networks which is there, for example, various tunnels which were unearthed in last few years between the India and Pakistan's international border in Punjab region. Or other challenges like the drones, etc., which are now being used by these drug cartels, these people in the drug networks, to drop the drug parcels or arms which are again utilized for the terrorist related activities. Government took various initiatives to address this particular issue. For example, for border security, tech-based surveillance is now used, radar is used, various other specific initiatives like CIBMS, that is Comprehensive Integrated Border Management Service, or the bold QRT, again that is being used for the surveillance at borders. The fencing of border is now also being done comprehensively. Plus, drones are now also used to keep a proper check, keep a proper surveillance. Also, the coast guards are also doing proper and comprehensive patrols to actually look up to the drug that is coming near the Indian coastline. Also, the legal framework, NDPS Act 1985, that was amended with stringent provisions with up to 10 years of jail terms as well as penalties. Also, the coordination between the NCB, BSF, Coast Guard, State Police is also happening with the MAC and NCORD, which are the mechanisms to share information with regard to the drug trades. The global cooperation is also increasing. For example, India is having ties with the UNODC, Interpol and FATF. That is also helping them to curb the finances, etc., that are being used, as well as to curb the money laundering. Also, the bilateral intel sharing and the joint operations are also being done with the countries. That is also helping in curbing the global drug trade. Also, Operation Sadbhavna, which was launched by Indian Army, where they were opening various schools, where they were also going to change the narrative which was being developed, which was developed against the Indian establishment, against the Indian forces. And majorly, it was the winning hearts and minds approach which the Indian Army was following under the Operation Sadbhavna, where awareness was getting inculcated in the youth, in the population, against the drugs, against the militancy, etc. Also, this Nasha Mukt J&K campaign that was launched again to create the awareness as well as to provide proper training and support to the people in the medical fields. Also, what should be done? What should be the way forward? First of all, if we talk about the legislative measures, there can be a dedicated narco-terrorism law with the dedicated provisions, and that can actually help us in taking proper punitive actions against these people who are involved in the narco-terror. Also, we can amend the NDPS Act itself with the stringent provisions for narco-terrorism, because as of now we do not have a comprehensive law for narco-terrorism. Also, special fast-track courts can be established so that if the people will be convicted in a time-bound manner, that will act as a deterrence to other people. Also, the technological measures, like we can leverage the artificial intelligence to have a watch on the internet, on the overall web, to address the issue of use of dark net, dark web, etc. Or blockchain, big data can be utilized to tackle the narco finances, for example, where exactly the crypto assets are being used, or what is the major transactions that are happening. If we will have a proper watch and analysis, we can actually address this network properly. We can tackle this narco-terror related menace. Also, the forensics, for example, we can strengthen the labs, detection technology, and expert training can be provided. Plus, the diplomatic related measures that can be taken. For example, we can again expose the Pakistan in FATF, UN, etc. with regard to the non-state and state actors which are there, for example the ISI, etc., which is backing various drug cartels. And we can also boost the regional anti-narcotics corporations. For example, RATS is one such corporation under the SCO. Also, the demand reduction, for example, we can prioritize the awareness, we can provide proper rehabilitation facilities to the drug addicts. Also, the community policing can happen, where the police can obviously create that awareness, especially in the universities, colleges, etc. Also, economic and development, for example, if we will provide alternative livelihood programs to the people, they might be able to address the stress or the unemployment related stress, and when they will also have some other work to do, so they might leave the drugs altogether, which will help in addressing the drug trafficking and ultimately the narco-terrorism. Also, this three-pronged approach, which is the need of our and which is again being used by the Indian Army under the Operation Sadbhavna, is the WAM approach, that is winning hearts and minds of the people. We need to inculcate this feeling with the population of Valley, with the border districts, that the Indian Army, law enforcement agencies are for the welfare of the people. So it is three-pronged approach, that is people-friendly military operations. Whenever any kind of military operation that is happening, it should not impact the local population. It should not impact the daily life of the innocent civilians. Plus, the public information and perception management operations. We should keep a proper watch on online social media handles, etc., so that any kind of fake news can be tackled in a time-bound manner. Plus, civic actions and the developmental work that needs to be prioritized. The infrastructure building should happen so that people's life can become easier. And when prosperity will come in these regions, obviously these people will understand that the government is for their welfare itself. For example, the government launched the Vibrant Village program to develop infrastructure in these regions. So these kind of programs can be further expanded. Plus, there can be a proper oversight mechanism to ensure that all these programs are happening at a proper level. This was a mains practice question. This was a mains question that was asked in 2024 mains examination, and this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic. Next topic is cased without conviction. The context of this topic is that the 70% of people behind bars in India haven't been found guilty. This is the wording that is given by the Supreme Court Justice Vikram Nath. And the context, this particular topic is related to syllabus of your GS paper 2, social empowerment, issues arising out of design implementation of policies. One of the case that is mentioned in this particular article is of a woman who was arrested on account of charges of murdering her children in 2017 itself, and she was a person who was married at the age of 16 years, and she was the victim of domestic violence, domestic abuse. She was abandoned by her family, and she got bail in year 2022 on the efforts of the Square Circle Clinic, which is a fair trial program of the Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. But she was in jail for more than 5 years for the crime which she didn't commit at all, and that shows the under trials which are as a percentage of total inmates. If we see that as per NCRB 2023, total inmates are 5,30,333, out of which 74%, that is 3,89,910, are under trial itself, on whom charges are still not established, charges are still not proven. And that brings us to overall issues which is plaguing the prison architecture in India. And most important is the under trials itself, that we have seen that more than 74% are under trials itself, out of which there are 2.7% of population which is in the under trial stage for more than 5 years itself. And a significant portion of that is not aware about the section 479 of BNSS, which provides with the liberty to the first time offenders that it allows the early release for such first time offenders if they have served up to 1/3 of sentence for the offense as an under trial prisoner itself. For example, for any of the crime, if the maximum punishment was 3 years and any person is already in 1 year jail term, then 1/3 of that particular jail term he has already gone through. So that person can get the bail under section 479 of BNSS. But the people are not aware about their rights, people are not aware about the facilities that are available. Or let's suppose for any of the case maximum punishment is 5 years, but there may be some population which is still perishing in that jail without even knowing that they have served the maximum sentence for the crime that they have committed. Similarly, the overcrowding of the prison, which is again one of the important issue, because if we see this data, again it is from NCRB, that the capacity of the jails are 4.4 lakh, whereas as of now the inmates that it is holding is 5.3 lakh in year 2023. If you look at this map which shows the prison occupancy rate in India, especially in states like Uttarakhand and UT of Delhi and state of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, this occupancy rate is much more than the 150%, and the overall India occupancy rate is 131.4%. And what is the problem that it is creating? When the jails and the prisons are overcrowded, that leads to unhygienic conditions in which these under trials remains. Also, with the unhygienic conditions, lack of resources, the disease burden further increases. Increased cases of violences or quarrels between the inmates also increases. Also, the custodial torture, which was again said to be against the Article 21 of which provides for right to life and liberty in the case of DK Basu case of 1986. Especially when we talk about the police custody, there were various instances, especially in Tamil Nadu in last few months itself, where one of the inmates was killed on and it was alleged that he was killed in police custody itself. And in this DK Basu case, it was said that whether any form of violence like rape, torture, etc., which is leading to death of the person, is completely against the Article 21 of that particular person. So when there are huge under trial population in the prisons and the prisons are overcrowded, the chances of custodial torture further increases. Also, the lack of awareness about their rights. For example, Article 39A provides for them a right, provides for the free legal aid, but again a huge population is not aware about that right of free legal aid. Or section 479 of BNSS, which provides for the liberty to the first time offenders that they can get the bail if they have already served 1/3 of the maximum sentence. So these people are not aware about that rights. Also, the lack of support system that focuses more on punishment rather than rehabilitation. For example, any person, they might have committed a particular crime, whether it was intentional or unintentional. But if that person is not getting proper support system with the help of which he can be rehabilitated, he can further bring back normalcy in his or her life, obviously we are depriving that person from the life itself. Also, the societal non-acceptance that once a criminal remains always a criminal. Even if there were allegations against a person and that was not proven in the court, and when that under trial prisoner is acquitted and he further comes back in the society doesn't accept that person. Even the allegations were there which was not proved, even the society accepts that person as the criminal itself, and that further limits the integration of that person in the society itself. Also, the gender sensitivity that is not there. For example, a huge population, let's suppose they were bearing the child at that point of time when they were arrested. So there may be a case that a mother will be serving the sentence with the child itself. And in that particular case, when she was bearing and rearing the child and she is in the jail itself, that kid is also going through that jail term without any crime itself. Plus, if you look into the data about the under trials, a huge population belongs to 18 to 30 years itself. So that shows that although we have a huge population, but because of unemployment, because of walking towards the negative paths, they commit the crime, and obviously they rot in the jails in that particular time period, which they can utilize for the constructive activities. Also, the corruption, crime, etc. Because of the overcrowding, huge under trials that we witness, we have seen that it becomes really difficult for the law enforcement agencies to manage that jail properly. We often see that the criminals are giving interviews from jail itself. The criminals are using mobile phones in the jail itself. We have already seen various instances where a big cartel nexus is being run from the jail itself. Also, if we talk about the huge poverty and the marginalization that is being witnessed in the prison statistics, that 59.7% of under trial inmates are from 6 states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh. 65.2% of under trials were either illiterate, that were around 26.2%, or had received education till at most class 10, that is 39.2%. That shows that more than 50% of them are having maximum class 10th as education, and that is one of the reason why they are not aware about their right. Plus, if you look into the data about the under trial inmates which are SC, which is 20.9%, 9.3% were the STs. Also, 14.6% of under trials had spent for 1 to 2 years, and 2.6% more than 5 years. So that shows that a huge population who are not economically very sound, and who could not afford a good lawyer, and who could not represent themselves properly, they are in the jails, because this is the data that huge population of the marginalized section is representing the under trials. Now, what are the different committees that are related to the prison reforms? One first important is the Rajendra Prasad committee that came in 1953 after independence, that provided for improvement of prison infrastructure, provision of adequate facility for prisoners, like the basic facilities in the form of potable water, hygienic living conditions, etc. Establishment of open prison for low risk offenders. And then M.R. Masani committee that came in 1978, that provided for abolition of solitary confinement, introduction of parole and probation system, emphasis on rehabilitation of prisoners. For example, one district, one jail product is one of the scheme that was launched by Mathura jail, where the inmates are developing some good products which have a huge potential in the market, and that can earn them a good value, and their earnings can be improved while living in jail itself. Or there were various cricket matches that were that happened in several jails of Uttar Pradesh itself. So when there are some co-curricular activities that are happening in the jails, that also helps the inmates in tackling the stress, etc. Also, the V.R. Krishna Iyer committee that came in 1983, that again emphasized on decongestion of prisons, implementation of alternative sentencing options, promotion of legal aid to prisoners. Then Malimat committee came in 2003, that recommended reforms in criminal justice system, improvement of prison condition, establishment of specialized prisons for women and juveniles. And Justice Amitav Rao committee that came in 2018, that focused on speedy trials with the fast track courts that are needed to be established, increasing lawyer to prisoner ratio, the introduction of special courts avoiding adjournment phone calls, etc. And phone calls facilities, etc. needs to be provided so that people are connected with their families itself. Another important issue that you can add is the mental health issue as well as impact on their health. For example, in the report that was given by this Square Circle Clinic Fair Trial Program, from 2019 to 24, Square Circle Clinic said that out of 5783 cases dealt it under this free trial program, 41.3% of the accused has no lawyer that are assigned to them because of the poverty, because of unaffordability, while 51% had no documents needed to pursue the trials. As much as 58% suffered from at least one disability. And also it said that 67.6% of under trials covered in the program belong to disadvantaged caste groups, and 79.8% worked in unorganized sector. Also, if you look into certain other global best practices, for example, if we talk about the Scandinavian model in Norway, open prisons, inmate autonomy, focus on dignity and rehabilitation of the people, halfway houses which are built in Japan that are supervised housing, job placement and social reintegration support are given, digital monitoring that is in South Korea where GPS anklets are given to the under trials for low risk offenders to reduce overcrowding, education integration in the USA that is university led accredited courses for inside the prisons itself so that people can utilize their time properly. Also the mental health units in Canada that provides for the psychiatric care integrated within the prisons for acute mental health cases. Now what is the path ahead? What is the way forward? First of all, we need to understand that the police is one of the state subjects provided under the 7th schedule of the Constitution, and that is the reason management of jails also comes under the specific state governments. So the central government provided for this Model Prisons Act 2023 that provided for shift from punishment to the rehabilitation. For example, a simple example that there can be a facility that meditation coach etc. can be incorporated in the specific jails which can help the under trials to cope up with their stress, to improve their health in that jail itself. Infrastructure, we need to build new prisons, improve hygiene and healthcare. We also need to promote the open prisons which is there in the Rajasthan model. Plus the understaffing that we witness in the jail infrastructure, that also needs to be addressed. Also we can incorporate the holistic approach, that is we can pair reforms with the awareness to reduce the prisoner stigma. For example, we have seen that several inmates they resort to suicides etc. If we will give them proper awareness, if we will give them hope that their case will be pursued properly and they might get out of the jail without any problem, then that stigma might be addressed. Also the rehabilitation, that we can provide the skill training, probation and aftercare to cult the recidivism so that the people can bring back normalcy in their life. Also the accountability, for example regular audits can happen. We can maintain the detailed inmate data including the person with the disabilities. Also the technology can be utilized. For example, we can use jammers so that the mobile phones cannot be used in the jail premises. Video conferencing and digital monitoring can happen. Proper utilization of cameras, CCTV cameras etc. can be done to enhance the security and efficiency. And with regard to that itself, e-prison program was launched to ensure that proper integration of the digital infrastructure is being done to monitor the jails properly. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic. Next topic is what's the plan to relocate forest tribes. This is related to your GS paper 2. Issues relating to SCs and STs, government policies and interventions. And this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 13. So, the Union Ministry of Tribal Affairs has prepared a new policy framework that outlines the procedures to be followed when implementing the existing laws that are governing the relocation of forest dwelling communities from tiger reserves. What are the forest dwelling communities? These are the communities who primarily reside in the forest land and they depend on them for their livelihood, whether they are taking the forest produce or non-forest produce in the form of gums, resins, etc., with the help of which they are fulfilling their daily needs. Now, there is a controversy that was going on. For example, in June 2024, there was a directive that was given by the National Tiger Conservation Authority to prioritize the relocation from the tiger reserves, and that led to widespread protests from the Gram Sabha, and also it led to the representation to the National Commission for the Scheduled Tribes, because these are the primitive people who are dependent on the forest itself. There is a traditional relationship with the forest, and when they will be relocated to some other places, they might not adjust at that new place properly. And that is the reason the policy brief that was given from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs says that relocation be considered a last resort, and that if they are carried out, the rights of the forest dwelling scheduled tribes and others must be settled under the Forest Right Acts 2006 first. So we should not go for the relocation, and even if we are going, first the rights of the scheduled tribes and others must be settled properly. They should be properly rehabilitated. Proper support should be given to them. Also, the policy brief spells out mechanism that allow these communities to continue residing with the tiger reserve, and also provides for measures that includes them in the conservation and management of biodiversity within the reserve itself. So what the policy is focusing on, it is focusing on the fact that how exactly we can ensure that there can be a balance between the primitive people and the conservation of the tiger population. How we can utilize the efforts and the knowledge of these primitive peoples in conserving the tiger population. Also, this particular policy brief titled Reconciling the Conservation and Community Rights, a policy framework for relocation and coexistence in the Indian Tiger Reserve. And this particular policy was prepared by the Tribal Affairs Ministry in October this year. It also calls for a national framework for community center conservation and relocation, through which the Environment Ministry and Tribal Affairs Ministry can jointly set procedural standards that needs to be followed, timelines and accountability under which the rehabilitation as well as rights should be given properly. Also, it suggests a national database on conservation community interface to record and track relocation, compensation and status post relocation, that whether people have adjusted to new location properly or not. Also, it recommends that relocation projects by the impaneled agencies that assess the compliance with FRA, the Wildlife Protection Acts and human rights standards. So this responsibility should be given to those agencies who adheres to these laws. Also, it adds that consent must be verifiable not just at the Gram Sabha level but also at the level of each households if we have to go for the relocation. Also, it further stresses that the forest dwelling communities residing within the tiger reserve must have the option to exercise their rights under the FRA to continue living in their traditional forest habitats, and if they are taken, be voluntary. That should be relocation should be scientifically justified, rights compliant and grounded in equity and dignity. So majorly this brief from Tribal Affairs Ministry wants to ensure that the rights of these primitive people, tribal people, remains intact, and they also wants to ensure that the population of tigers also remains conserved. Also, there are several serious concerns about the non-implementation of FRA, especially with regard to the relocation, and that is the reason this brief came. And there were various instances, whether it was the Nagarhole National Park, where again such conflict played out, whether we should give priority to the tiger conservation or we should go for the relocation of the primitive people. When we talk about this FRA or the Forest Rights Act 2006, that provides for right over forest land, and this rights empowers the forest dwellers and the traditional communities which are dependent on forest for their livelihood, but this right is up to 4 hectares. Also, it provides for rights of self-cultivation and habitation, but it is for the livelihoods only. Also, right to collect minor forest produce, it also include non-timber forest products like gums, resins, etc. Other produce like tendu leaves, etc., with the help of which they can sustain their livelihood. Also, it provides for grazing rights for the livestock population. It also provides for right to protect and manage forest by the forest dwellers and communities, that they can decide that what is the mechanism that they can follow for the protection. Also, other community rights like customary and traditional use rights. For example, they may be celebrating a particular festival by organizing a proper festival, and that group can be celebrating that festival. So that should be properly respected, because that is the customary and traditional use right that is being provided by the FRA itself. Also, all rights are heritable but not transferable or sellable. For example, if there is a family, the father can transfer that right to the son subsequently to the son, but this father cannot transfer this to any person who is living in Delhi or any other city who is not a forest dweller. Also, these rights are jointly registered in the names of both spouses if they are married. Also, it is exempt from the prior clearances under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So this policy brief is majorly focusing on the fact that even if we are going for the relocation, we should give proper respect to the rights of the population, as well as when we are going for the relocation, we should give proper facilities to these primitive people who are being relocated. Also, when we talk about the tiger reserve, as of now there are 58 tiger reserve, and the recent is the Madhav Tiger Reserve. And this is the one of the question that was asked in prelims 2020. Among the following tiger reserve, which one has the largest area under the critical tiger habitat? These are the core areas in the tiger reserve which will not be disturbed at all. Now you people tell me in the comment box that what is the answer of this question. Next topic is Center notifies rules for deep sea fishing. This is related to your GS paper 3. Agriculture and allied activities, economics of animal rearing, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 11. So this particular article is mainly focusing on the fact that government wants to support seafood exports or fisheries sector, and that is the reason Union government on Saturday notified the rules for sustainable harnessing of fisheries in the exclusive economic zone, which extends up to 200 nautical miles from the coastline of India. Since India has a huge coastline, and that is one of the reason we have a huge potential with regard to the seafood, for example shrimps, fishes, etc., or also to boost the fisheries sector. And that is the reason to support this fisheries sector, the Kisan Credit Card KCC, which was also extended to these allied sectors in the fisheries sector. Also, the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, that also provides support to the food processing sector, and that also supports to a larger extent to the seafood industry. Also, this limit of Kisan Credit Card was extended to 5 lakh rupees from 3 lakh rupees in Union Budget 2025-26. Now, if there is a question that comes whether KCC loans can be utilized for allied sectors or not, so that option will be correct. Now, in this particular case, the Union government says that it will be giving priority to fishermen, cooperative societies and fish farmer producer organization for undertaking deep sea fishing operations and managing the technologically advanced vessels, because in the deep sea the potential for getting good amount of fishes are very high. Also, this exclusive economic zone rules will not only facilitate deep sea fishing but also contribute to enhancing seafood exports by emphasizing value addition, traceability and certification. For example, a huge fisherman still follow the bottom trawling, which is not sustainable at all. That impact the marine ecosystem. Plus, that is also creating certain bilateral tensions, whether it is between the India and Sri Lanka, and that is the reason sustainable technologies are also being utilized, is also being promoted under this. Also, the rules has defined operator as an individual or any enterprise or any fish farmer producer organization or fisheries cooperatives, including the multi-state cooperatives, that controls the operation or management of fishing vessels or who has assumed the responsibility for its operation. Also, these rules will take steps to provide training and capacity building of traditional and small scale fisher, including the fisheries cooperative, self-help groups as well as fish farmer producer organization, and that will help them in enhancing their skills for deep sea fishing as well as for value chain efficiencies that will help them in increasing their profitability, increasing their remuneration. Also, ministry said that initiative is expected to open new horizons for countries' marine fisheries. Now also there is this particular all these measures, all these rules will be properly utilized with this real craft portal, which is being used for the verification and processing of vessel and catch related information. So this real craft portal is a web enabled application developed using the open source technology, and it provides online services for vessel registration of whether it belongs to cooperatives, individual or enterprises. Also, it provides for fishing license issuance so that people can fish even in the exclusive economic zone without any difficulty. Also, applicants can apply, upload documents and make e-payments from any location. Verification process includes on-site vessel inspection by officials, biometric capture and document verification at the office. After verification, the registration certificate or license certificate is issued online itself. Also, it offers allied services including the change of ownership, addition of hypothecation, alteration of vessel attributes, etc. So even if there are some changes happening in the vessels, that can be done with the portal itself. So it is providing better facility to these people who are dependent on the fisheries sector. The major objective of this particular portal is to develop a modern and transparent vessel data system, and that will also help government to manage them properly. For example, there were reports At times there are reports that some of the vessels were confiscated by the Sri Lankan Coast Guard or the Pakistani Coast Guard. So if we will have a proper data, we can manage all the vessels properly. Also, it enhances the security feature of vessel management. It also ensures efficient, transparent, accountable and reliable services. Various components under this are, for example, fisherman-centric solutions online, e-payment, data analytical report with the help of which the data can be analyzed and managed properly. Also, the government is focusing on conserving biodiversity. A minimum legal size for fish species will also be prescribed, and fishing management plans will be developed in consultation with stakeholders, including the state government, to restore the declining fish stocks. Also, the mariculture practicing such as sea cage farming and seaweed cultivation will also be promoted as an alternate livelihoods in order to reduce the fishing pressure in near shore areas while increasing the production without compromising environmental integrity. Also, as of now, the inland fishing contributes more than the marine fisheries, and that is the reason we want to harness our potential from the marine seafood. Next topic is study calls for tailored treatments for regional HIV variation. This is related to your GS paper 3 biotechnology, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 11. So the most promising antibody based treatment for HIV, that is human immunodeficiency virus, do not work equally well in patients from all regions, as the geographical origin of the virus affect antibody effectiveness. This is one of the new Indian research that has found. So antibodies are the proteins that are produced from our own immune system, and they protect from any of the unwanted substance that tries to enter our body. They are produced by the immune system, and these antibodies bind to these unwanted substance which tries to enter our body. And another word for antibody is the immunoglobulin. Also, we need to understand that antigen is any of the foreign substance. This can be virus, bacteria, or any of the toxins. They enters the body and trigger an immune response. And antibodies are the protein that is made by our own immune system that recognizes and attaches to that antigen to help destroy it. And in short, what we can say that antigens are the invaders and antibodies are the defenders. Now, what exactly happens in the vaccine, whether it is live attenuated or a certain part of the virus is extracted, and then when that is injected in the human, that triggers an immune response. When actual virus will attack in future, these antibodies which were generated in the first instance, that will help in fighting that particular disease infection. So as of now, antibodies were being used to treat a person who was infected with the HIV, because as of now there is no vaccine that is available for HIV. But now with this particular research, what we got to know that the exact clades or variants, and that belongs to the different regions. This antibody response also goes for the different response with regard to the different clades that are available, and that belongs to different region. For example, there are several HIV variants or clade C that is found in Africa and India, and this accounts for nearly half of all infections across the world. And the study found that HIV-1 clade C strains circulating in India differ genetically and in body response from those in Africa. So because they belongs to different region, and that is the reason their response to antibody treatment is also different. That means that both lab engineered antibodies and any future vaccines may need to be customized for specific reasons. Any vaccine or any antibody treatment that is being produced for one reason may not be suitable for other reasons. And the researchers have called for developing monoclonal antibodies and conducting early clinical trials in India to actually get an idea about the efficacy of these treatments. Monoclonal antibodies are lab-made proteins that act like the body's natural antibodies. They are the identical copies that is designed to target one specific germ or cell to help treat disease. So this HIV or human immunodeficiency virus is a virus that attacks the body's immune system. It weakens the immune system, making it harder to fight off other illness. And if it is left untreated, it can make people very sick, and it can also lead to AIDS, that is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, the most severe stage of HIV. Also, medication can help people stay healthy, and it is mainly transmitted by having unprotected sex, from sharing needles, and works to inject drugs through pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding or chest feeding. In the initial phase,
it is acute HIV, that is having the flu-like symptoms that occurs day to weeks after contracting HIV. Then there is chronic HIV, that also known as the latent or asymptomatic stage, that can last for several years. Then at the third stage, which is the AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which occurs when the CD4 cell count falls below 200, and it makes a person vulnerable to opportunistic infections and AIDS defining conditions. These CD4 cells are also called as T helper cells, and they are a type of white blood cells that play a key role in the immune system. They help in coordinating the immune response, and they also signal other immune cells like B cell, killer T cells to fight any of the infections. And when their numbers declines to a significant level, the immune response also becomes very weak. Next topic is government to extend Ujjwala Yojana benefits to slums to curb bad air. This is related to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 2. So as part of ongoing measures to curb air pollution, government of Delhi is extending the benefits of Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana to families which are using the traditional stoves or coal-fired heaters, because they are also one of the sources due to which the greenhouse gas emissions also happens, as well as various other toxic gases like carbon monoxide etc. comes out of that coal-fired heaters. And this scheme was launched in 2016, and it is a central government scheme that aims to provide LPG connections to low-income households, BPL families, and while covering the installation cost, the first repeal hose, regulator and stove. Also, the Chief Minister has directed the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board to conduct a comprehensive survey across all slum clusters to identify families still using traditional stoves or coal-fired heaters as per the statement of Chief Minister's office. And based on the survey, government will prepare a list of families that still is dependent on the traditional sources, and they can be given the Ujjwala connection. And in past few weeks, we have seen the air of the Delhi has already become very hazardous. The AQI has become very poor, and government has also tried the cloud seeding etc., but they also didn't yield any proper result. This particular Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana aimed for providing smoke-free life for every Indian by provide 5 crore LPG connections to BPL families, and it will replace the unclean cooking fuel mostly used in rural India with the clean and more efficient LPG. Also, families in the below poverty line will benefit from it. Also, people can fill up the Ujjwala Yojana KYC application form that is available at the nearest LPG distributor. And all the people, all the female who are listed in socio-economic caste census 2011 data, they are eligible to get the benefits. They should be above 18 years of age. Also, we should be aware of the fact that in any family, in any households, the ration card will be issued to the female member who is having 18 years of above age. Also, under the BPL, they should have a saving banks account in National Bank, should not have any existing LPG connection in household. It is mainly to provide the clean fuel for purpose of cooking and free them from the hazard of collecting fuel. And also it addresses the concern related to health due to use of firewood. It also ensures that every household is smoke free, and it is benefiting 5 crore women under the scheme, and it become a comprehensive direct intervention initiative for women. Also, government recently launched in 2021 the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana 2.0, and it is under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. It is a central sector scheme. Objective is to provide deposit free LPG connections to those low income families who could not be covered under the earlier phase, which was from 2016 to 2021. Purpose is to safeguard health of women and children by providing them with clean cooking fuel. Women only must have attained 18 years of age, and adult women from a poor household without an existing LPG connection can get the benefit of this. The households having any other LPG connection from any other oil marketing company like HP, Indian, etc. will not be able to benefit. They should not have any connection, only then they can get the benefits. Also, ease of registration for migrants, that migrants are not required to submit ration cards, addresses proof, a self-declaration is sufficient. This is what I was talking about, that any woman who will be having the 18 years of age, the ration cards of that households will be issued on the name of that woman itself. And this was one of the questions that was asked in the prelims examination also. Next topic is IPO wave brings back cautious retail investor. This is related to your GS paper 3 growth and development and capital market. So the average daily turnover in the cash segment of secondary equity market is reviving after the recent fall, which is driven by the improving retail participation. Even the concerns over the high valuation and growth uncertainties persist. So what happens, let's suppose there is a company ABC Limited. Now if they are in need of funds, they are in need of money, they have two routes. One is the debt route and second is the equity route. Under the debt route, they can take loans from the banks if they are available at competitive rate, or they can also issue bonds, which is again a debt instrument. In simple terms, we can understand it as a piece of paper having the bond price and then the coupon rate plus the frequency of payment, etc., all will be written on that bond itself. It is mandatory for the ABC Limited to give periodic coupon rate or interest payment at whatever frequency it was promised. Also to give back or pay back the actual amount, actual bond price after the bond matures. Let's suppose bond maturity is 3 years and the frequency of payment was 1 year itself and the coupon rate was 10%. So ABC Limited will be paying the 10%, that is 10 rupees interest payment every year, plus 100 rupees will be given back to this person after the maturity of 3 years. Now the second route is the equity route, where ABC Limited can give up some of the equity in that particular company. Let's suppose earlier they were having 100% ownership or 100% equity in that company, so they can dilute 10% and they can say, okay, now any person who wants to invest in my company, they can come and they can buy 10% stakes in the company, and whatever the money that they will be offering me, that can help in addressing the liquidity needs of that company. So any company which wants to get listed in the stock exchanges, so for the first time when they are coming with their shares, that is called as initial public offering, they will be making their shares available in the market for a specific period. For example, recently Lenskart came with their IPO, Grow also is a company which also came with their IPO. So there is a time period which is fixed, for example 12 to 14 November, that will be fixed, within which the people can subscribe to the shares of this company, whatever lots that they want to subscribe. And if the particular company is oversubscribed, if the shares are, if the IPO is oversubscribed, then they will be given to the people according to the lottery. Now whoever will be getting the shares of this particular company, that particular share will be credited in the demat account of the person, and on the day of listing of that particular stock, people can trade that share. If they want to sell that share, they can sell, or if they want to keep it for future, they can also keep it for the future returns. Now what we have seen, that with the increased participation of the people in the IPO market, we are also witnessing revival in the secondary market. Secondary market is that once this particular share is listed. So primary market is the company, is a place where company is offering share to the investor, and then when it is listed in the stock on the stock exchange, when the shares are now traded between the investors itself, one investor is selling and now that is being bought by the another investor, that is the case of the secondary market. So the article says that with the more incorporation, more use of IPO, more subscription to the IPO, we are also seeing the revival in the secondary market. The average daily turnover on NSE was up marginally last month at 98,740 crore against the 98,312 crore in September, and it was up 6% compared to 93,545 crore in August. Also ADT in the first 7 months of fiscal was down 19% at 1.01 lakh crore against 1.24 lakh crore in the same period last year. Also this average daily turnover in the BSC cash segment was down at 7,662 crore last month against the 7,743 crore in September, and in first 7 months of this fiscal the ADT was still down 17% at 7,598 crore, and if we see year on year, we are still not matching with the last year. And this is the major difference between the primary and secondary market, which we were discussing, that primary market is the new issue market. It is the marketplace where company issues securities for the first time, and that is called as initial public offering. And prices in the primary market are fixed and issued at par value, whereas after issue market is the marketplace where investors trade their second hand securities that investor is selling to the investor itself. And prices in the secondary market are they depends varying on the demand and the supply of the securities that are traded. If there will be too much demand of that share, there may be a very high price that we will be witnessing, or increase in the price of that particular share that we might witness on the stock exchange. That is all from today's analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.